Hello everyone, Turner Burner here with another video for you guys. I'm going to go into uh, analyzing Paddock and his abilities, ultimate, passive, and all of his skill cards as far as I know them to date. If there's some sort of alteration or change from now, I might make a video about that later, but here's what I know so far, so let's just dive right into it. So first things first, Paddock's ultimate is fear. Put nearby enemies into a state of fear. Enemies under fear cannot attack and will retreat. Does not affect bosses. Basically, it depends on the context, but in general, if an enemy is going towards Paddock and you activate your ultimate ability, they will go away from Paddock. Now, this can get weird if Paddock is running, because sometimes they'll run with Paddock. It's bizarre as far as that fear ability. So you just kind of have to test it in different situations. But in general, if you're not moving, it'll go away from you. And if you see the purple glow around them, they won't do you or your teammates any damage. So it's very, very useful if you're trying to get out of a dicey situation. And his passive ability ties into his ultimate ability where he deals double damage to enemies under fear. So there's been situations where like a Scion was coming near me and I activated my ultimate ability, and then what I did as he was running away from me was I would just keep meleeing him. So that's very useful because he does twice the damage, so it's actually more efficient to do it that way. And also you don't have to worry about getting hurt while you're attacking a Scion or whatever you're trying to attack. Just to go back to the ultimate ability real fast, it does not affect bosses. So Matriarch, Kestrel, those bosses won't be affected. I can't speak for Guardians and Sentinels quite yet. I want to say they should be affected, but I haven't been in that situation yet. So that's just something I'll have to test. But I know Wardens, Operation 4 Wardens, they like to charge a lot. So I've had a Warden charge right at me and then charge immediately away from me. They run really fast away from you as well, so it works on Wardens, I can tell you that much. Stump, I'm not entirely sure as well. I haven't been in that situation. But in theory, it should be the bosses of Horde like Matriarch, Kestrel, who am I missing? Swarmak, they won't be affected. Carrier won't be affected. Things of that nature. So, depending on the situation, that can be very useful to help your teammates out to put the enemies in fear. So that's the ability, ultimate and passive. So let's go to the skill cards, and I'm gonna take this one by one. And if I haven't used this skill card personally, I'll just let you know. But I'll tell you what it's supposed to do. But Intimidation's a really good skill card. It's one of his gold cards. I think he just has two. Let me double check. He just has two gold cards. Basically, it says 11 seconds of fear to enemies within 5 meters of a critical kill. For those FOS users or snipers, basically a critical kill is basically a headshot. So if you have, I don't know, a bunch of enemies next to each other and you headshot one of them and they're within 5 meters of that person who got headshotted, they will be in a state of fear, and sometimes typically they'll back away from the person who just got headshotted. The duration of that, I'm not entirely sure, but at minimum, they won't be hurting your teammates. They won't be shooting at your teammates because they'll be in a state of fear. So that could be a good situation. Hypothetically, if you have 20 juvies running at you and you headshot one of them, you put all of them in fear, and it helps your teammate get out of that situation. So next is so that's intimidation. Next is concussion rounds, or concussive rounds. Concussive rounds, is basically reads as it states. It's level 5 for me, and it'll be 4 seconds at level 6. That's what it says on the side. Boltok headshots on drones stunned for 3.5 seconds longer. What also works is if you use it on grenadiers. So grenadiers works. I think after you take the helmet off, you can stun them. I'm almost positive. So basically, you can stun them with a Boltok shot. It doesn't have to be active or anything, and then you can meat shield them. Or execute them with B. It just depends on how you want to do it. So concussive rounds can be good because again, it stops people from stops the drones or elites whatever from shooting, and then you can quickly execute. So that's very, very useful. Epic score boost is self-explanatory, just a time bonus for Horde or Escape. Lifeline, anyone who kills an enemy in fear state heals and gains 25% stem. So basically, this can combine well with intimidation. Because in a situation where, let's say you put a group of enemies in fear, and then maybe your teammate is getting hurt by another enemy, and then they kill one of those enemies in fear, they regain all of their health plus 25% stem. So that could be very, very useful lifeline. And then, so there's other situations where I'll explain why that could be useful as well. Again, score boost, self-explanatory. The next one is Armored Shot, 55% damage while Paddock has stem. With ballistic weapons while Paddock has stem. I've only experienced this with Marxa because it combines well with this one. And that's the gun shown in the photo. But ultimately, there's a card called Execution Shield, which we'll get into, that allows him to get stem. And if you use it with this card, there's some bleed with his ballistic weapons while he has that stem. So on a master level, how long he actually has that stem isn't very long, unless he's constantly getting executions, which I'll go over here in a second, because you're constantly getting hit, meleeed. The enemies are constantly taking your stem off, so I haven't actually saw value in this card per se because of the fact that you need the stem for this to work. So if maybe on lower difficulties, or if you have lethal off, you can have the stem longer, so there's more value. But I don't see on a master level why I would have value. But you could try and let me know if you disagree. Consecutive shot, consecutive critical hits increase damage 20% each, up to 200%. So any map, I find this has the most value with Marxa because you can keep tapping it. But any map that has Marxa in conjunction with this card, which is a really, really good card, will have value. So critical hits, just to review, a critical kill is a headshot kill. Critical hits is just hitting something in the head. So if you hit a Scion in the head, he's not going to be headshotted in one shot as Paddock. But if you keep hitting him in the head, that'll progressively accumulate over time up to 200%. And I can't wait till this card gets to level 6 because it's going to be a really good card. But so basically, if you're accurate with your headshots, or head hits, this card can be really, really good for you because you get rewarded for more and more accuracy. So just keep that in mind when you want to use this card. This is a card I have used, and you can definitely notice because Paddock can take down the Scion with Marxa relatively quickly. And obviously, similar to any other gun, if you activate, you get even more damage. So active shots with a Marxa in conjunction with this card could have high value. So definitely use this card if there's Marxa on the map. So Execution Shield. This is probably one of his strongest cards, I would say. Unfortunately for me, it's only level 4. But it's a really, really good card even at level 4, even on a master level. So it says 80% damage resistance while executing and gain stem. So Executions count basically any triple B combinations to where you're knifing something in the head. If you're pulling out a battery pack for a reject, that's useful. Trying to think what else am I missing. But yeah, anytime you're executing, like almost like the video or like the photo shows where you're knifing something, it'll allow you to regain all of your health plus stim. So kind of similar how Cole has something. If he has low health, he can gain stim on the very next kill. This is kind of what this is. Very very good card. It combines well with another card which I'll get here into a second. But just to give you some context, the 80% damage resistance, that's real. I've been meleeed, like I was pulling out a battery pack for a reject, and I had to get meleeed by 4 rejects before I actually went down, when typically it would just be 1 as a character without, a venom resistance or something like that. So it took 4 rejects to melee me down eventually. And if I pulled out the 1 reject fast enough, I wouldn't have been down at all because I got stem. But very, very good card. So yeah, definitely use that one. So phase. Basically, phase combines really, really well. These 2 cards are really work really well together. So execution shield and phase. So keep that in mind. So executing causes fear for 11 seconds to nearby enemies. So how can I explain this with phase is if you're gaining stem while having damage resistance, as soon as you're done executing with this card, the enemies around you will be in a state of fear. And as I touched on earlier, his passive is to do double the damage with enemies in fear, and enemies in fear do not attack you. So execution shield and phase work really, really well together. If you watch my other Paddock video earlier, you'll notice that enemies in fear, they run. It can be like a DR1 will run from you, and they won't attack you, and you do more damage to it. So it's very, very helpful. So combining these 2 cards is pretty key. That way you can execute enemies close range, and then you can move on to the next enemy. And if you just keep executing, you'll just keep putting enemies in fear, and you won't have to worry about enemies at close range hurting you. So those 2 cards, execution shield and phase, work really well together. Next is marks of mastery. Again, this stacks well with consecutive shot. 40% extra damage and active effects with Marxa. If you're doing active Marxa with critical hits, you're gonna kill. If it's a regular enemy, you'll kill them really, really fast. Maybe 3 or 4 bullets tops. And Scion, not much more than that. So unfortunately, this is my weakest card. It's only level 3. But any map with a Marxa, let me think. So we got lethal engagements. We got the Labyrinth has Marxa. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of others. The Choke has Marxa. Any map with Marxa, these 2 cards would stack really, really well together. So, and if somehow you have stem, you could do these 3 all together. You can get bleeding, consecutive shot, and the damage. So that'd be a lot of damage on whatever you're trying to kill. So I tried this card once, Powered Sprint, picking up energy heals for 75%, and I believe Kate has a similar card. It actually works pretty well. I haven't gotten to use it necessarily for a 50 wave match yet, but I do know earlier on it definitely helps to stack well, hypothetically speaking, if you do an execution shield and phase, and you're executing enemies nearby, putting them in fear, and let's say from a distance you're taking damage from something else. When you pick up the energy. This is a Horde card mainly. If you pick up the energy of the person you killed on top of the stem, you're gonna get that'll heal you from damage from a distance. So definitely a good card. The Horde stack, I would say I'm not 100% sure on, because I'm more of an escape player, but it's probably similar to escape enough to work because Paddock has the marks and things of that nature. But we'll get into that later. So this card works really, really well, and you can actually notice the difference between using it and not using it. And that's the key with some of these cards. Do you notice the difference between having it on and having it off? That's the way. That way you know it even works. So this one I'm not super familiar with, but here's what it says: 25% extra damage at long range. This could stack well with Marksa and consecutive shot if you're shooting Marksa from a distance. Marksa doesn't really work that well from a very long distance, but you know, they specify long range as 15 meters, so 15 meters is, you know, not that far. So, but that could work well if you stack it correctly. A lot of these stacks, you just have to pay attention to all the cards and your style of play to see if it makes sense with how you play. I'll show you example stacks for escape and horde and things of that nature. Just examples, but again, it really would depend on how you play and your personality. But Nasha proficiency, this card, he has so many other more relevant cards, but I'll go over it. 25% increased damage and active effects. If he has a Nasher, he does more damage with it, but again, he has far better cards. I wouldn't even worry about this one a whole lot because he has a lot of fear-based cards or, you know, headshot Marksa-based cards. I would steer towards. Menace is a really, really good card. Executions recharge fear for 45 seconds. So what you want to do with Menace is it allows you to it'll stack well with Execution Shield, Phase, and Menace. Those three kind of make you almost indestructible in a way. What I mean is the Execution Shield puts you have damage resistance while executing. Once you complete that execution, the enemies near you are in fear, and then you combine that with executions, recharge fear for 45 seconds. So you could just constantly cycle killing enemies in fear the whole game if you have enough execution type kills. So those three alone almost doesn't even matter what the other two are, can combine extremely well to have you a very, very good time, especially on the new map or anything that has where a lot of enemies can be executed. So Menace is a very, very good card. Surprised it's not a gold card because it's so good. Because 45 seconds translates to about 4 kills or 3 or 4 kills or something. It's not much. So like you can have your ultimate if it's a game with rejects very early. So very, very helpful. Very early on in the game. Rain Down is a card I've never used. 25% extra damage when above the enemy. I guess it works as it sounds. It could be good depending on how you stack it. Again, it depends on how you play. You could stack it well with the other, Marksa cards. You got the acceleration, you got the Marksa. So if you're just sniping, maybe you do Armored Shot, consecutive, Marksa, acceleration, and then Rain Down. That would work extremely well. You have a lot of long range distance. Fearsome Aura increases his radius fear ability by 6 meters. Basically, this could work well with Phase because enemies that are a little bit further away can be also put in a state of fear. This is a good card as well. I haven't used it a whole lot at the high levels, but it's definitely a good card. Terror, let me go in order. Nomad Armor, 32% damage resistance within 15 meters. I haven't really used this since I did a few Surge runs, but any damage resistance couldn't hurt. You know, any defensive card couldn't hurt. You just have to figure out relative to the other cards, do you need it? Because the execution card, execution shield, you already get all of your health plus stem. So do you need the damage resistance? You have to play with these cards to see what works for your style of play. Precision resistance just says 32% damage resistance from precision rifles. I haven't used this card at all. I'm assuming that would be Sniper, Embar, Marxa. I'm not sure how well it would work on a master level. I guess if you stack these two together, they may work together. That's usually how a lot of these defensive cards work. They usually only work if there's two working at once. But yeah, that's just something you'll have to test relative to your style. And extend fear duration to 15 seconds. This is a good card. It depends on the context, because if you're trying to kill enemies and they're just running away in fear and they run it all the way across the map, that can be annoying. But if you're doing like a surge run, this could be very useful because you get a bunch of enemies totally out of your way. So Paddock actually makes a lot of these XP runs extremely easy, because you could just run by enemies in fear and go to the LZ, and it's very, very easy to get cards and whatnot. So, but yeah, Terror is a very, very good card as well. I'll do some example stacks for you guys that I have used, so you can see. And this is I'll steer mainly towards Escape, because he's a very, very good escape character. If I learn more about Horde, I'll tell you, but it really won't be that much different outside of the fact that this card, you can pick up energy and heals for 75%. So here's some example stacks I'm gonna go over. So I'm gonna reset my cards. So let's see, an example stack, I would say Execution Shield is a good one. And then we're gonna go Menace, and then we're gonna go, where's Phase? We're gonna go Intimidation, and then Concussive Rounds. So this is a good stack on most maps, I would say. I'll show you probably two others that may make more sense. So on most maps, the majority, I would say, Execution Shield. Now remember, I don't know if I said this earlier, meat shields do not count. It does not work for meat shields. It only works for the triple B if you're on controller. Triple B execution where you're doing a knife. It doesn't work for a meat shield. It should, but it doesn't. So 80% damage resistance while executing gaming stem. So remember I said earlier, these three cards work extremely well together. While you're executing, you have damage resistance and gaining stem, and because you executed, your execution is going to recharge by 45 seconds, which is about 3 or 4 kills to get your ultimate. Every 3 or 4 executions, you get your ultimate again. And then Phase, executing, gives enemies nearby they're in fear for 11 seconds. So you can execute those enemies, and then put the others in fear, and it's just a constant cycle. As long as you're executing, you just keep putting everything in fear, and you can wipe out an army or many enemies at once if you do it this way. So these three alone, the other two cards almost don't even matter, because these three are that good. So Execution Shield, Menace, and Phase, those three are key. Intimidation, this will combine if you get like a Sniper or Marxa. If you get those headshots, it'll put those enemies in fear, and they won't attack you. Whether they move back or forward, it depends, but they won't attack you is consistent, and that can be very, very useful if you have a lot of enemies coming after you. Hypothetically, I don't know, Juvies or Mulcher Scions, things of that nature. Very, very useful to get those headshot critical kills, to get your team out of a hairy situation. So another thing is concussive rounds. Bolt talk headshots on drones stun for 3.56 seconds. So this can stack well with the first three. You stun a drone, execute them, you get 80% damage resistance while you do it while gaining stem. You put the other enemies in fear, and then you recharge your ultimate if you don't already have it, because you may have used it or whatever. But so yeah, this stack right here: execution shield, menace, phase, intimidation, concussive rounds, very very good. I'll show one other because this could go on for hours and hours if I just show every single possible example stack. Let me look and see at another one. So if this is only going to be a slight tweak. It's not going to be that much different. Nation phase. Let's see. Actually, I'll put that back on because those cards are that good. So with where's execution shield? I think early on you should just get in a habit of having these three on, because it'll make your master escape very very easy. Menace, phase, and execution shield. So the second stack I'll show. And if you have questions about other stack options, just ask me. I'll look at it and see what I think about what you want to work together. Because Paddock, and that's the thing about good characters. They have a lot of options. So it's options are good. Sometimes you put bad cards together and they don't work as well as they could, but options are good. So the second stack I'll show you is this one. So Menace, phase, execution shield I kept on because I think honestly these three they work so well together. But what I've changed is I put on consecutive shot and I put on Marxa mastery. So basically I got to a map that has Marxa and I want to do more damage and get more headshots faster. So, and because I would consider myself relatively accurate, getting consecutive critical hits is not a big deal. So, and this card only works if you are going to be accurate. So active Marxa is, I would say, because this card is when it works the best. And if you're going to be, get consecutive critical hits, it's going to kill things extremely fast. Drones may be 3 bullet kills, Scions may be close to 6. It's not much. That may be slightly off, but it's not many hits if you're going to use these two cards together. And this is only level 3. When it gets to level 6, it may be even faster than what I've experienced. So this is another example stack. And it's just more of the same with these 3: execution shield, phase, and menace. So you can basically keep executing things, keep putting them in fear, and keep gaining stem, and keep recharging your ultimate. So it's just a cycle of fear that you can, that Paddock, or what you have, with the right cards, Paddock has allowed you to do. So these 3 cards mainly are good for any XP run, because it allows you to put the enemies in fear, and you can just keep going to the safe room, going to the LZ, and you have nothing, or you have less to worry about than in a normal situation. So highly effective, and highly recommend using these 3 cards in almost all situations. But like I said, lots of different combinations. This card, Powered Sprint, can be used for Horde. Terror can be used, for any situation, to get more fear into the enemies. You just gotta try these cards out is the main thing. Intimidation's an excellent one. Get headshots on enemies, put the enemies around in fear. So it's a very good gold card. So yeah, most of these cards are completely irrelevant except the Nasher one, I would say, because of the nature of the other cards are so good. Lifeline's a good card. You just gotta figure out the strategy of your team, and then based off of your strategy relative to what you're going for at that time, you can put these cards together and go from there. But that's it. That's it, guys. There are no best stacks, I would say, but there are a lot of really good stacks. There are probably best card setups relative to certain maps, but there is no 5-card stack that carries over 100% to all maps. I do think Menace, Execution Shield, and Phase work really well on most maps, but the other two can be, it depends on the situation. So that's it, guys. I can keep going, but let me know what you think of the video. Let me know what you think of Paddock and your experience. If you have questions, comments, if I was inaccurate, let me know. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next analysis. Thanks, guys.